Hey, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. It is me, Angey Lee. Welcome back to the playground. Welcome if you're new here. Today I am going to get into the story of my marriage. So back in 2004, I met a man at work. We got along quite well, and a bunch of us got together one night and had a little too much to drink, and before you knew it,
let's get naked.
So we kind of saw each other for about a year, but our relationship was really, there were so many red flags. Like, everybody was telling me that there were so many red flags, and I kept telling them that they didn't understand, and that it wasn't about immigration. And but one day he called me on the phone and he asked me if I was, we had already talked about marriage, but not officially. There was no proposal. But he called me up on the phone one day and he asked me if I was willing to be on his papers, on his immigration papers. And he asked me if I knew what that meant. And if I knew that that meant that we would get married and that I would be on his immigration papers. So I was really dumb and I agreed. So we ended up getting married. He called a justice of the peace, and we brought one friend with us, a friend of his, to be a witness, and the justice of the peace's husband was a witness. We got married in her living room. Oh, I should also mention, at the time that we got married, I was very newly pregnant with my son. I found out that I was pregnant with him on September 5th, 2006. And our wedding was on September 20th. The night before our wedding, he wanted to celebrate. So he had his buddy, the one that came with us, and they insisted on moving the bed and the furniture and dancing all over the house. It was a big celebration for them. However, I was pregnant and exhausted, and I was not having fun because, of course, they were drinking and I was sober, and I couldn't go to sleep. So we ended up being late for our wedding. I was rushed getting ready, very rushed, and very tired. And after we came home, my lovely new husband went to sleep. He went to sleep. It's like so many clues. I don't know why I didn't pick up on them. Our first year anniversary, I wanted to go to dinner, and he forgot, and made plans to help a buddy with his store. So by the time it was time for dinner, he was absolutely exhausted. And it was not enjoyable at all. It was not a fun night. There's so many red flags in that marriage, like so many. But I was in love. And at the time I didn't know. I didn't want to believe. Should I rephrase that? I didn't want to believe that I was being used for immigration purposes. But our marriage was never, ever good. Never. Like, it was very fake. I felt like roommates with a marriage certificate is what I felt like. He refused to sleep in the same bed as me. He would sleep on the couch or on the floor in the living room. He wouldn't sleep with me. He wouldn't sleep in the room. Never once. Oh, no, I'm lying. Once he changed a diaper. Once. Because my stepmom in the hospital handed my son to him and said, okay, it's your turn. And that was the only time he ever changed our son's diaper. At the time, I ran a day home, and he would give more attention to the kids in the day home than he would our own son. And he accused me of our son not being his, and I told him several times that if you want to get a paternity test, I'm down for it. I'll do it. I know that it was his, that there was no other way it was anybody else's. But he wouldn't do it. He just didn't treat us right. And he would go out and, you know, go to the beach and stuff like that with his buddies and their families, and we would be left at home under the understanding or under the impression that he was out working or that he was out doing something with the guys. But then later on I would find out that it was a family event, and as we weren't being invited, my husband's friend's wife asked me why I never wanted to come. And I said, well, I was never invited. No, not by him. I never knew when it was happening. I was never invited, so. And our son either. And then when it was our 5th anniversary, well, no, let me back up a bit. In January, we'd been married for 3 years. It was a January winter night. And he was drinking quite heavily. We got into a fight. And he left and accidentally phoned me. He accidentally pocket dialed me. When he had a prostitute in his car. And he wouldn't He wouldn't touch me, but he would pay for it. So that was the beginning of the end for us. I kicked him out. He ended up coming back. He begged me to try to work on things with him, and I said that I would from separate homes, and he ended up coming back. So then I moved. I couldn't move far. I moved down the hall in another apartment down the hall. But he still, for another 2 years, didn't give me my privacy, and oh no, it was longer than that. Oh wow. Because that was year 3. 2 years we were trying to work on things, living in different apartments. And then the very final was our 5th anniversary that he didn't show up for. So that was when I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. But then I couldn't afford to move, and he refused to. He still lives in that shitty old building in the worst, crummiest part of the city. Very, very high crime, like really high crime. And a horrible view. We looked out on a back alley with dumpsters. And the LRT passed by all the time. It was very loud. It was very loud. It was right off downtown. It was horrible. Anyways, so for another 3 years, I lived down the hall from him, and it was not pleasant. He kept coming over, and like he would come over for coffee in the morning, and like, oh, it was just horrible. And oh, it was horrible. I'm not going to get into too much details of it. It was not a good situation. It wasn't until after the divorce, like when I was getting things ready for the divorce, and I started seeing the papers and the timelines of things, the timelines of everything, made me realize that I was used for an immigration status. He still didn't have it when we were divorced. I don't know if he has it now. We've been divorced for a few years now, quite a few years. But he disassociating. I totally lost what I was saying. Through the divorce. No, it was before the divorce. Right before the divorce, when I had to request child support, because he never paid child support ever. But I needed help. I needed government assistance, and when you need government assistance, they will go after your ex-spouse for the child support. It's all part of the process of it all. I had a lot of I had a mental breakdown, my son and I both. When we finally moved, when we finally got out of there, we both had a mental breakdown. It was a very difficult time for both of us. But before the divorce, he insisted on doing a paternity test. But by this time, our son was 7 years old and old enough to know exactly what was going on. So that completely ruined any kind of attempt of a relationship for the two of them. It was never going to even come close to happening afterwards. I tried. It would have been nice, especially when my son was young, to be able to be like, you know what, go to your dad's for a while. I need some mommy time, but I never got mommy time. I ran a day home, and that was 12 hours a day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I had my son 24/7. Like, the only time that I ever got a break from him and kids was when my dad and stepmom would take him. And then my stepmom passed when my son was 5. So there was never nobody ever took him after that. There was never mommy time after that, but that's okay. We're very close. We've got a close relationship, and I'm really proud of him. He's my little man. He's a good kid. Grew up a lot when I had my accident a couple years ago, but that's another story. It's in my videos somewhere. My ex-husband had been married before me in the United States, and like when he left his country, he's from India. When he left his country, he turned his back on his government, and that's how he was able to leave. So he went to the States and got married there and ended up in some domestic disturbance issues. So he ended up leaving there. Well, she divorced him. He left there. Apparently she's got a baby, and he said it wasn't his, but now after really getting to know who he was, it wouldn't surprise me if it was. But he was married before, and he told me that he was in the United States for 2 years after they divorced, but that wasn't true. It was 2 years after they separated. He was actually told to leave the United States because his citizenship stuff all fell through. He ended up leaving the United States, and he came into Canada illegally, apparently. I didn't know all this until afterwards. And requested refugee. Didn't get it. Tried getting citizenship through working. Didn't get it. And within 3 months after moving from the US to Canada, I met him. And I didn't know that it had been 3 months. He talked about living in Vancouver for a little while. He talked about living in Manitoba for a while. And I didn't realize that he had so many stories that I didn't realize that they're all cram-packed into 3 short months. He made it sound like it was a long time that he was there before he came to the town that I'm in. And was trying to get citizenship through employment again, but that fell through yet again. So that's when he asked me to be on his papers. And the reason it took so long is because he ended up having a DUI, and he was a smooth talker, and like, I'm not even going to repeat the story that he claimed to me happened, because now I highly doubt that it was the truth. I was so gullible and so injured. From my past, and I was so lonely that I believed anything he told me. Because I just wanted to be loved. And it was great until we got married. Like, it was really good. And then after we got married, things very slowly started to deteriorate, but it was so fast and slow, kind of all at the same time. And by the time my son and I left there, we were just a mess. We were such a mess. I had to go on, I had been an alcoholic for a while. I quit drinking, and I had to go on antidepressant pills and a bunch of other pills for a while there. I'm down to just 2 now, but for a while there was a few. And my son was also on antidepressant pills, migraine prevention medication, migraine medication. He had issues with balance. He had issues with memory. He had so many issues, and I was fighting to get him into counseling, but my ex-husband didn't believe and agree with counseling, so he was fighting it. And here you need both parents' consent for psychiatric help. But my ex-husband was refusing to give it, and it was so frustrating. I didn't understand. But I ended up going to court quite a few times to get medical for my son. And in the end, when I went for to revoke the parental rights, it was very easy. The judge was like, yeah, we're done with this guy. Rights are revoked. Like, we didn't even have to fight at all. Like, it was so simple, so easy, and that's very very unheard of. But the only times that he actually showed up at court was when it had to do with money. So it was very obvious that he didn't care about me or his son. So we're doing good now. We were in counseling for a few years, and we've healed. We are still healing. That's when I went into counseling, I didn't heal. I didn't talk about my marriage a lot. I went right back to the beginning, because I knew that if I didn't start from the beginning, that I was going to keep replaying the same thing over and over and over again, replaying the same, you know, ending up the same type of people, you know, being the same gullible person that couldn't stick up for myself, couldn't handle myself. But that's different now. I feel good now. I feel really good now. Like, it's crazy, because most of my life I felt like I didn't really belong anywhere, and I felt like I was just kind of here, just kind of wandering through life, and I didn't have any plans. I didn't have anything. Like, I just felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I felt like alien almost. Like, I didn't feel like I was part of the world. And now through counseling, I've been able to connect. And that's so amazing. I've been able to feel emotions, which is so amazing. Sometimes I'll be talking about something, and there'll be a tear, and I just, like, where did that even come from? You know, like, I don't even know. For a long time, I couldn't feel. I would talk like Amy does and just speak about things as if it was just a story to be told. That's with no emotion whatsoever to it. As if it didn't happen to me, because I was so disconnected, and even still, like, a lot of my past doesn't feel like it happened to me, but that's just the way it is, right? But I just wanted to come out with the story of my marriage, and kind of show that I kind of know where Amy comes from with her marriage. But after years of being together, you know, like, it becomes comfortable. Like, it's just comfortable. This is life. And a lot of arranged marriages, they learn a respect for each other, a love and respect for each other. So I know that from being in a multicultural relationship, I guess. It sure woke me up to a lot of things, though. I learned a lot, so I can't really say that I would take any of it back, because if I did, I wouldn't have learned it all, and I wouldn't have an amazing child, and I wouldn't be as strong as I am today. So everything in life, I believe, happens for a reason. You don't usually know the reason until way later. But then you can usually look back and figure out, okay, well, if this didn't happen, then I wouldn't have known to do this, or to be compassionate to that, you know? So that's kind of my thoughts on it. It's all about learning and growing, right? That's what life is. Anyway, if you made it all the way here, thanks so much for watching. I'm going to stop this now, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.
Please subscribe to the channel. I know this is the 3rd, 4th, 5th video you watched. Just subscribe. Just do it. I'll wait. I'll wait all day.